What is up, everybody? My name is Nick and I am a super nice guy, and today I'm here to talk about a topic that is pretty important, I would say, in product and UX design, and that is user flows. Now, the way I think about user flows, or how I describe them, is that it is a way to take something very complex, such as a full app or website, and narrow it down into very small, bite-sized pieces that focus on the user first, which is something we all do as UX and product designers. In this video, I'm going to be breaking down my approach to user flows and how I use them to inform the work that I'm going to be doing, and I'm going to show a few examples of some user flows that are out there in real apps today. Cool, well, enough about all that. Let's just jump into it. Alrighty, so here we are looking at the first step in this journey, we'll call it, which is a user story. So this user story can be used to guide what the user flows are going to be. Typically, the user flows are the way a user flows through a product or app. The user story is sort of the roadmap to that flow. What dictates the flow? Why is the user going through that flow? What are they trying to accomplish? So here's a user story we're going to use for a flow of creating a chat group. I've just been designing some chat group functionality in an app that I'm working on, so this one's just very relevant to me, and I think it's a great example. So the user story here is, as a chat user, I want to create a chat group so that I can talk to multiple friends at once. This is just a standard format for how user stories are laid out. They indicate a user type, a specific task, and then a specific goal the user is trying to accomplish. Okay, so now with that user story in mind, I have here a couple examples that I've been pulling from Mobin, an awesome resource that just documents apps and products, and mobile screens and things like that. I've talked about it in another video, but it's great. They recently told me they uploaded new Messenger app screens, and so coincidentally I just looked on there and was looking at all the cool new Messenger screens. So what I have here are actually two flows for creating groups inside of Messenger. They're a little bit different. One is to create a group from a search experience, from search results. The other is to create a group just from a friend's detail page or screen. Though most of the screens are similar, their entry points are different, and that's why I have them as two flows here technically. So what I've done here is just pull in screens that I'm auditing and want to understand in a greater level of detail how Messenger is approaching this feature of creating a chat group. All right, so let's see, jumping into this one, create a group from search. Now what I have here is Messenger's general chat screen where all your running list of chats will exist. And so since this is a flow from search, the user would click on the search input and then begin typing a friend's name, and then Messenger has suggested autofills here that will either be based on your friends who you talk to a lot or what you're typing in this input. And so once you've selected one, you actually need to select a second user before create will become available to you. And I've actually dropped in a little comment here for myself, which is a nice little way to annotate some of these things. I'll place in arrows that loosely indicate where a user clicks or interacts to get to the next screen. And then here we have, I've noted, select at least two friends. You need a minimum of 3 total users to form a group. So with just one selected, that makes 2 users. A little bit of logic is what it's called here, a little bit of logic to be able to proceed to create a group. So create is disabled. Once you have at least a second friend selected, then create is enabled, and then we jump to the new screen that's just the chat screen but with multiple people in it, and then the name just takes on the user types here. And going a little bit further down this, you can see once you start to type, it brings up the keyboard. I'll note all of these things, they'll all come in handy as I'm approaching a create a chat group user flow in the app that I'm working on. Everything matters, everything's important, and these are apps used by, billions of people, for example, in this one. So a lot of this stuff can be taken very seriously, like it's doing a good job, and there's a lot of UX and good sound product design that's gone into it. It doesn't mean that you should copy necessarily. There's always potentially things that are different for your product, app, your demographics, the people you're trying to reach, and so on. But I'd say at a general level, a baseline level, the UX here is all really good, and obviously obviously the visual design is quite beautiful. So once we type in a message, you get a little bubble there and it's great. And then there's, the check mark that shows the message has been seen successfully. I believe once users see the message, it shows their little avatar there too, and you can confirm that both people in the chat have seen it or just one or so on. But once you get into this chat level and you've sent a message, you actually, right on this screen, which is interesting, you have options to add users, rename the group, and just view members. And this is right in the same experience of this general chat screen here. I think also you can click on this general header area here, or maybe the name that you're seeing here, and it will bring you to the detail screen. The detail screen just has a ton more options, customizing and things like that. Again, you can add and change the name too, just in a little bit different way. They've decided to expose some of these options here at this top level, so they're easier to access. At least that's what I would assume the rationale behind that is. And I've just made sure to note specifically around changing name, because the thing I'm working on has an editable group name, just like, these other chat experiences here. And so once you hit change name, you can do this from either option, either screen here. You just get a little pop-up sheet and a little input, and you type in, whatever you want to call it. And then you actually get a little bit of a notification printed out on the chat screen. And then obviously you see the representation of the change made here. Okay, now this next flow is really similar, but looking at this first one, again, it was from a search specifically. So there's multiple ways to do a lot of things, especially actions that users are going to want to do a lot of the times while they're in your app. There might be a lot of sense to have this action or flow begin at different points on the journey, depending on the context. Both are relevant. From search, it certainly makes sense to be able to create a group when you're searching for friends, but if you're on a friends details screen, you can also have that option there to add this friend to a group. That also could make sense, and I'm sure they have analytics behind the use cases of both and how often users are choosing from this flow or this flow, for example. Okay, so for this flow, create a group from a friend detail. Again, we're starting on the chat screen, same thing, nothing's changed there, but instead of beginning with a search input, we're actually just looking at our friends. And so when we search for a friend specifically, potentially, or however you want to get there, you then land on their specific page. Maybe you were going to click on them and see more details about them, or look at their profiles or things like that. But from here, you also have the option under more actions to create group chat with user person right here. So again, the interesting thing here is it's only initiating the create group. Once you hit create group chat with this person, again, the logic still exists. That's only one user that's been selected, but it brings up the same exact action sheet here where you have your list of friends or people that you might want to invite, and then you have to select at least two to get the create button, and then boom, the rest is exactly the same. We've created a chat with these two users, but the entry point is different and totally valid, and that's why I thought it was important to capture both of these flows here, even though they're generally the same. All right, and so similar to create group, this is delete group, the opposite of it. And it was just here at my reach easily in Mobin where I was grabbing these screens. So I just thought, if you're creating a group, you'll probably want to be able to delete this thing at some point. And so I decided to just document that here. It's a pretty standard approach where they're using the slide. If you drag it or slide it over, you reveal actions, and then they have a more here, which then has delete. And so once you have delete, we have a destructive action warning, which is what we call this here. You're going to permanently delete something. We want to really make this evident to the user, and so delete is even in red, this semantic color indicating something warning or scary, and then blue cancel is more safe, and you back out of this action. But so when we delete it, we have the option to delete, and then we're asking, are you sure you want to delete, just to make sure that it didn't accidentally press this, and then group has been deleted. All right, so I have one more to look at here because these are just two great examples, and I'm fairly confident I understand what I need to design or the flows in every screen I need to account for to make this a very seamless flow for the user. So this next one is Snapchat, which is another one I'm a fan of, both visually and with the UX. Okay, so specifically with Snapchat here, this flow is creating a group from a new chat. Now, I wasn't able to really get a bunch of comprehensive screens from this off of Mobin, so I've mixed in some of my own screenshots that I've taken on my mobile device and uploaded them here and sort of tried to fill in the blanks. So it's not quite as in-depth as the Messenger app, but here we go. So Snapchat, what you can do here to create a new group from a new chat is press this little more icon, or sometimes aptly called a kebab. This little more icon pulls up an action sheet where we can say new chat. So once the user clicks on new chat, they are then taken to this screen titled new chat, where you can search your friends, you can view recents, and then you have an alphabetical list of all of your other friends, and then you have a new group action right here, a button that you can click. So once you click new group, or you just begin selecting at least 2 different friends, it's the same way. Here you can begin selecting your friends and then choose new group, and it will retain those selections. But the other thing you can do here, the flows are really similar in this case. You press new group and it immediately goes to a new group name that's disabled to, and this is your friends. So this is an active input right away. Who do you want to invite to this group? You can type their friends right away or view them from the recents list. And then once you again select at least 2, this create group button becomes active, and then you can create the group. Now with this specific flow, it drops you off again right into the chat of whatever group it is. You do take a step to name. I couldn't find the screen here, but after you create the group, there's a step to name it here. The pencil becomes available rather than disabled here, and then you're dropped onto the new group screen here, and you can begin chatting in that group. And then I also just documented here, when you look at your friends or whatever list we have here for chats and things like that, groups exists here, and so the group you've just created will be populated inside that grouping list. Alrighty then, well that was me taking a little bit of a deep dive into user flows, why they're useful, how I personally use them, and so on. I definitely enjoy looking at other apps that I admire, picking out user flows, and then starting with those little pieces. How is this accomplished? How does the user achieve a certain goal or task in this app? And I will document them and make sure I'm understanding them fully. I'm bringing them in, I'm auditing them, I'm getting really deep into the details, and really just preparing myself for when I design this thing, what is going to be going through my head? What things do I have to be thinking about? And what are my options for potentially solving these bigger problems? If you found this video useful, please remember to like and subscribe. It would help me out. And I think everything's about wrapped here. So until next time, super nice guy out.